Hey, Paris, how you doing? All right, as promised, here we are. Let's go ahead and take a look at the work. So this was the original, okay, and this one was the second one. Okay, let's go ahead and start with the original. So, and first of all, thank you for your patience. As you know, as an instructor, the primary obligation rests on the current class. So thank you for understanding that, and thank you for being patient. But here we are, so let's go ahead and take a look. So the first one, if you remember, my comments were that um, I thought it was a little imbalanced. I thought that the relationship between the background pattern and the actual word mark itself were a little bit off balance. I also was a little hesitant because I thought that the background pattern was going to interfere with the successful reading of the word. So that's something that you rectified and you submitted this piece. Now I think this piece is a little bit of the opposite. I think this is we've kind of lost this cool overlap, and this is nice. This overlap I think is one of the strengths because it really defines this depth, and the depth further kind of releases this interesting relationship between these squares that are on an angle and kind of assorted together. So that's a neat pattern, and I think the relationship between the logo mark and the background pattern is cool. I think it's effective the way it overlaps. Now, in your second, we don't have that. We've lost that kind of engaging element based on the fact that now we just have it the word centered in the middle of the pattern background. So my recommendation is this, and as you remember, my main concern was that we're going to lose legibility of the word. So by doing this, I think, yes, we definitely see the word, but we still have to kind of have this contrast issue. So I think after looking at this for a while, this really points to the gradient. I think the gradient there's this really light up here, too light compared to the color background, the white background. So if my recommendation would be at this point to just think of a different. This looks, if I select this looks like, I'm going to move this down. It looks like this is a default gradient that's included in Illustrator. So you may consider a little bit darker of a gradient right here, a little bit of darker of that gold, and then definitely right here. So we're just going to take that whole gradient and darken it up a little bit. Now, as we see, the gradient itself is applied as a pattern to the background. So if we move the logo, the background stays stationary. The pattern itself will move within the words. So we can't really just select, well, let me show you what I mean. If we just select this, okay, there's the word, and we move it, as you can see, now the pattern in the background changes the way that it's oriented to the actual word itself. I'm going to Command G that, and I would recommend that if you're going to apply a gradient, just select the word and apply the gradient instead of applying the pattern in the background. That way, when you move the word itself, the gradient will remain intact. Okay, so at this point, when we see that's the one that you submitted. This is the original, and there's two recommendations here. Now, what I would do once I if you darken up that gradient a little bit to make it a little bit more legible, is take this, and all I want to do is I'm not going to reduce the size at all. I'm just going to start moving it over to the right. Now we can see we've got a really neat relationship starting here, as we can clearly see. Now, note that the background pattern changed, right? But when you add just a straight up gradient to the word mark itself, that won't happen. So, and I think I've even gone a little bit too far here. So something like that. Okay, now that we still have the relationship with the background. Now, one other thing I want to draw your attention to is this. You see this square right here, this black square, the one that's on the upper left. Right now, it's kind of tucked behind the gold square in front of it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. We only see it right here, and that adds a little bit of imbalance. So what I would suggest, watch what happens, and I'll zoom in here so you can see what I mean. You see how each one of these squares is on its own. That one's on its own, this one's on its own, but this one is tucked behind the gold square in front of it. If I select this, it looks like these are grouped. So I'll go to Object, Ungroup. Okay, now I should be able to get that, and we'll just move that up a little bit. Now we can see that is now consistent, right? So if we go back to full zoom, we can see that the pattern is intact. The logo looks great over the pattern. The depth and dimension are very interesting, and it's readable. My only concern at this point is the gradient. So right now it just points to a little bit of a restructuring of the logo itself. And I think this is a good relationship right here. And then just see if you can't work a different gradient into that background, something that's going to hold a little more contrast. And I just want to try something here real quick. Let me go to layers. Here's my layers right here. I'm just going to start a new layer, and I want to see how this looks on a darker background. So let's do this. Let's place that layer at the bottom there. And let's just see what happens if we place a different color. Okay, so that's black. Now note the black squares are gone now because it is black. But if we just, let's select a different color. Okay, so now you can see how this looks on a color background. So you can see the weight distribution here. Let's go here. Then let's go here, here, here. So you can see that one of the issues here is it points to the fact that we're losing a lot of contrast based on this gradient and its relationship to the white background. So again, I think this points to the actual gradient itself. Other than that, mechanics is sound and the mechanics is good. So if you want to go ahead and adjust that gradient, try a couple of different gradients and get back to me. I'll be glad to take a look. But I think those are my main comments. So great job. Thank you again for your patience. And let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Paris.